Do I actually need a lawyer? The attorneys are actually just in it for the money. How much then am I going to get? Should I sue or not sue? Hi, I'm attorney Chris Nicolaysen from Springs Law Group. And today, one of the things I want to talk to you about is common objections that we get from potential clients who are looking to hire us at Springs Law Group. I feel really guilty about going after or suing the person that hit me. You know, they came up to me after the crash and they said, I'm sorry. The person that hit you, first of all, they were negligent. Even though it may not have been on purpose, they were still negligent. So you've got to remember that first. It's facts, not feelings. Facts are now you've got a car with property damage. You've also been injured. We've got some things that need help, because now the person that you were right before the crash isn't who you are today because of that person's negligence. So unfortunately, them saying I'm sorry, that actually doesn't get your car fixed, and it also doesn't help you feel better or get better either. And the reality is them saying I'm sorry too doesn't take away the inconveniences of you having to go to multiple doctor visits or having to get surgery or having to miss your kids' appointments because you have to go do those things as well. So think about it that way sometimes too. But just remember, as you're thinking about it, it's the facts versus the feelings. Don't let those feelings get in the way of the facts that happened of you being hurt. So you've got the neighborhood kids out there and they're playing baseball, and then one of those balls go through your window. The kiddo then comes up to your door and knocks on the door and he says, I'm sorry. Well, the problem is I'm sorry doesn't do what? Doesn't fix your window. You've still got a broken window. So even though he felt bad, you still have a broken window. So you need somebody to pay for the broken window ultimately. So think about it that way as you're going forward if you feel bad or feel guilty about the other party. Should I sue or not sue? Some people feel like there's way too many lawsuits out there in today's society. Here at Springs Law Group, we don't want to file litigation unless we feel like we absolutely have to. What we'll do is we work your cases in phases. We'll have you treat while we investigate, and then ultimately we'll try negotiating with the other side to see if we can come to a reasonable settlement. Sometimes there's a lawsuit that has to be filed. But if that has to be filed, that is only done at Springs Law Group with your consent. Even though a lawsuit is filed, the odds of you even getting to trial, though, still may be very low, because there's other ways to still settle your case even if a lawsuit's been filed, and that's mediation. And ultimately, if you're somebody that says to us, there is no way I ever want to sue, period, then we have that expectation walking in from the beginning. The idea of trusting a lawyer, the attorneys are actually just in it for the money. Well, I want to tell you at Springs Law Group, that's actually not a reality. Myself, I'm a former school teacher who thinks it's really important that we not only educate our current clients, but we also educate the people that we have on the phone that are looking to hire as well. So one experience that we've had recently is we actually had a former client who got into a crash again, and she called us up right away. And one of the things that she said right off the get-go was, I trust you guys. And it's always, sometimes it's that like gut feeling that you can get to, right? Where you know, like when you're talking to somebody, if you can believe them. So our goal here at Springs Law Group is to be open and honest and very transparent with you. And we're gonna take away that image of those sleazy lawyers, right? Honestly, I don't want to look greedy. One big question that I ask potential clients and clients that come into our office is, what did you do wrong on the day of the crash? And they all look at me and they say, I did nothing wrong. I was just sitting there waiting to go to the grocery store. I was just sitting there and then I got rear-ended. I was sitting there waiting to take my kiddo to soccer and then somebody T-boned me. I did nothing wrong that day. Exactly. You did nothing wrong. And yet now you're the one whose life has been turned upside down. You have injuries, property damage, and a bunch of appointments that you never wanted to go to. And those appointments take away time from not only yourself and your workday potentially, but also time and value from your family. And so those are the things that we're actually trying to get you compensation for. It's not just a big paycheck. What we're actually trying to get you compensated for are your injuries, your quality of life, and your pain and suffering. I've got better things I'd like to do with my life. So the reality there is that, it's not about being greedy. It's about getting just compensation. I'm an adult who wants to do things the way I want to do them. I didn't want to go sit in a doctor's office and wait for half an hour and then go in for an appointment. And so those are the conversations that we have. We call those economic, your medical bills and stuff like that, your lost wages. So economic damages, and then non-economic. So your quality of life, your pain and suffering, and things like that, things that were taken away from you from the crash. And so I want you to think about it that way instead of just it being viewed as being greedy. And so you did nothing wrong that day. Now you are different and injured. and you deserve compensation and just compensation for that. So as you think about that going forward, because the reality these days is if you didn't hold the other side, the at-fault party, accountable, then we would end up in a society too where everybody could just run amok and get away with things like that too. So that's kind of our viewpoint on greedy. It's the same conversation that I would have with anybody calling us up today. And so that's, kind of the way we approach, it's not being greedy, it's actually getting just compensation for being injured in a crash. If you found any of this information helpful in today's video, like and subscribe. Customer service is not great when I've worked with law firms before. I call up and I don't get a return call. It just is something where I don't feel like my voice is being heard. It's one thing that's really important to me as the owner because I've worked both as a school teacher, but I've also worked in restaurants and retail, and customer service is really important. So we want to make sure to right at the get-go that you're getting communicated with properly. So at Springs Law Group, what we have is we have a 24-hour return policy during the work days that we will return your communication if it's via text, email, or phone call within 24 hours. Sometimes people are like, but I only want to talk through text because my life is really busy, or email works best for me instead. Well, that's fine. Any mode of communication that works for you, we can make it happen. If it's via phone, text, or email, we're happy to do it in whichever way you choose. I got hit in a crash, but I talked to the other party who hit me, and they seemed really nice. They were apologetic, and they were just nice people. I could just feel it. So they were really nice. What happened is this nice person, they were just negligent that day. They had a duty to drive safely. They didn't do it. And then they breached that duty. And then ultimately they caused injury to you and property damage. Now, even though they're nice, it's actually time to get yourself some compensation. So the model that I do like to use when we're thinking about it that way is facts, not feelings. So separate out the facts of what happened versus the feelings of how you feel about the other person. And that's kind of the approach that we like to take when somebody's asking, hey, but they were really nice and I don't want to do anything bad to them. It's not doing anything bad. It's actually you just trying to get compensation for your injuries when you did nothing wrong. Do I actually need a lawyer? So they'll tell us about their case a bit. And at the end of the call, they're like, do I actually need one? Because why don't I just go it alone? I think about it in the context of me years ago going to fix my car. I had an alternator that went out. What I did that day is I went onto YouTube. I found a video of my car with an alternator getting replaced. And at the time, I think I was working as a manager at a retail store. And so not a mechanic. So could I do it alone? The answer was yes. But I think there's a list of other questions that you want to ask yourself whenever you're asking, can I do it alone? It's not just yes, period. It's also yes, but. Yes, but do you want to learn a new skill? Do you want to take the time to do it? Do you want to understand the law, the deadlines? Do you know what things you should sign or not sign? So if we go back to my alternator or car repair story, took me most of the day. If I would have just taken it to a shop, it probably only takes them 1 to 2 hours because it's what they do every single day. So same thing here. If you're injured in a car crash, it's what we do every single day. A lot of people are like, how much money do I have to put up front? The answer to that is none. We're not an hourly rate retainer firm. We work on a contingency fee. So that would be as we put the costs up front, we only get paid our fee at the end if you get compensated as well. So if we do our job and you get compensated, then we get paid. And that's paid on a percentage fee basis. So that's kind of the breakdown on how the fee structure works. And then what we do for somebody at the very end of a case and a settlement is we send out what we call a disbursement sheet. And that disbursement sheet's going to be a breakdown showing what the full settlement amount is, what our fee is, how much you're getting in pocket, how much of your medicals are being paid back, and to whom. And then you get to review that, sign it, and ultimately approve it. So we're open and honest, very transparent about what those fees are. How much then am I going to get? And honestly, that one's a bit harder because especially at the beginning when somebody's calling right after they've been injured, we don't know because there's still a lot of things that can happen. There's so much other stuff that needs to happen, such as medical appointments and a tracking of your quality of life and understanding of your case as a whole that we would need to investigate. So we're not going to just give you a number and a false promise of what that will look like. And so for us, it's very important that we've got the facts, we've had time to review it, and we can have an open and honest conversation with you as to what that amount will be down the road after you're a client. I was in a crash, but I wasn't really hurt that bad, so I don't really know if I need to hire a lawyer. I would tell you to time out right there for just a minute because one, if it's right after the crash, your body kind of reacts differently to crashes and injuries just based on anxiety and other things that are happening. So I think it's important that you get assessed by a medical professional. We've seen many, injury victims basically have said, hey, I'm not really hurt that bad. And then down the road, their injuries flare up. Then it's like, holy cow. I understand that I can feel and react to my own body, but sometimes just because I don't see it, there may be something severely wrong with me on the inside. Sometimes I can, play tough. So just because today you might not feel that bad, doesn't mean tomorrow you won't. And so it's important to make sure that you're taking every precaution after a crash and getting yourself checked out. Potential client will call up and say, hey, I was injured in a car crash, but I just got an offer or a check from the at-fault insurance company. What should I do with it? And I've literally had this happen, in my conference room where a gentleman was in a crash and a week later he came to see us and he's holding a check from the at-fault insurance. The problem that we have with that is, one, we'd recommend never signing that. And if you, have a release or anything like that, have it reviewed by a lawyer. But the big issue is this: a week later, after a crash, you don't know what your injuries truly are. You haven't finished treatment. You don't know if you're going to need more chiropractic care, more physical therapy, more massage, injections, an MRI, surgery. None of those things you know yet because it's so early on. The at-fault insurance company is trying to get out and away very quickly and with ease. Even if you don't have a lawyer, call us up. We're happy to review it and let you know based on our experience whether or not it's a good and fair deal or whether or not they're just trying to pull a fast one on you. If you know someone that could use this information and that it would help, make sure to tag them or share it with them.